of all things emo and adjacent with your hosts, Katie and Nani.
Hello and welcome to the Emo Hour podcast. This is episode 5 and we're here. It's the end of November. We're going to go into the main topic a bit later, but how are you doing today, Nani?
I'm doing pretty good. You cracked me up at the onset of this, and so I have a huge smile on my face because
good.
We're not in the same room yet again, sadly. But we are recording this the day before we're putting it out, and so Katie's traveling, and I'm about to be traveling, so we're tuning in from afar, like we've gotten pretty used to lately.
Hey, I think we're doing good. You know, we always have tech issues, but today went smoother than previous ones have been. It's all learning process. This is Katie. I didn't say that. This is the Emo Hour podcast where we talk about all things emo adjacent, and whatever else we want to. And we're gonna start out with our first segment of the day. So, Nani, do you want to start? What's making you emo this week?
You bet. I feel like today is going to be one of those days where we talk about so many things that may be considered adjacent or whatever else we want to. But what's making me emo this week is our radio show that we had last week and the joy that I'm getting out of doing this podcast with you. And I know that I can't use this frequently, but last Wednesday on our radio show, we had the most ridiculously epic, chaotic episode we've had ever. And my heart felt so full. And I had even though it wasn't very emo, what we did, we took the lineup to Coachella and we were playing like 30-second snippets and it was just pure chaos. And we were talking over each other. Yeah. Talking over the music, talking over each other. And then, it just kind of, it was that combined with, we've been doing like a bunch of prep work for future episodes together. And I'm really grateful for our partnership and this experience because I don't know that it would have happened with anybody else. Like the reason why this is because it's you and me.
And we're 2 peas in a pod. I don't know. I wanted to say something better, but I couldn't come up with anything.
I'll take 2 peas in a pod. That's cute.
I was hoping for something more clever and interesting, but that's what I came up with. But that's so sweet. And our radio show seems to be quickly turning into more of like a variety hour. Because for the listeners, our radio show started as the emo hour, and then it's, kind of progressed into this idea for a podcast. But doing both at the same time can be a bit challenging because there's overlap in, emo hour radio show and emo hour podcast. And like it was the day of the Coachella lineup announced. So it was not very emo at all. Although we did play some Green Day and Jimmy Eat World because they're on the Coachella lineup. So that fits. But the rest of it was not. Like 3 6 Mafia, not emo.
That was the song that started it all, though, because as soon as I saw 3 6 Mafia was on that bill, I was like, we gotta listen to this song immediately. It is such a banger.
And then I think we played it at least twice, snippets of it, maybe 3 times.
I mean, right now I want to start playing it, but I haven't figured out how to play music over our podcast. So one of these days I'll figure it out.
I know. We could do that. Actually, yeah, we'll get into it later, but I think we'll be doing that at some point, playing some snippets and talking about songs, whether it's album reviews or whether it's like a lineup amalgamation, kind of like we did for Coachella. But yes.
Amalgamation. Look at you pulling out SAT words.
I'm good at words. Well, that transitions pretty easily, I would say, into what's making me emo.
I was just going to ask you the question.
Because mine is, and we're both taking this in a positive direction this time. And I think we generally try to be a little more positive, but sometimes we'll have to be a little more emotional and angsty and melancholy about what's making us emo. And speaking of melancholy, what's making me emo is we recorded our first episode with a guest.
It was so fun.
That will be next week. Our guest was Molly Long, who is a fellow judge on the judges panel for Battle of the Bands, which we talked about on the last episode, and it just went so great. And I think we just scratched the surface with her, and she's been in several different bands and is definitely more in like the punk kind of music scene, but emo adjacent, as we say. So it's
so
exciting.
cool.
She was
She's
so
just
cool. She was so great. And I mean, we have lots of other ideas, but yeah, we're both feeling emo, I guess, about this in general.
For real. So, Katie, today is what we're kind of calling our monthly emo review, which would be our November emo news. Just kind of recapping all the different happenings going on in and around, I guess, maybe the music industry, but specifically emo. But I think this week I have a few things that I wanted to talk to you about and get your opinion on, and I know you've got some stuff as well. But I wanted to ask you the question that I've been seeing going around the internet like crazy, which is if you had to choose one and the options were going to Warped Tour, going to When We Were Young, going to the Linkin Park tour, or to the My Chemical Romance tour, what would you choose?
I
I know.
can't. No, I would. I wonder if this will surprise you. I would choose Linkin Park.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That does
Um,
surprise me.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, a lot of reasons, I guess. I've never seen Linkin Park before, and I've really come to appreciate them more, like as I get a little bit older. So that's part of it. I just think that I'm a bigger fan now than I was, kind of growing up. And when they were releasing all their major albums, I would say I appreciate them more now. I think the new singer, Emily, is fantastic. And their new album that just came out very recently, I've listened to a couple times. And the first single that they released is still, in my opinion, like the best song on that record. But there's some really good ones, and I'm going to have to listen to it more to really hone in on the ones that I like the most. But I just think it would be. I also feel like they just put on a great performance. Like the live stream that they did earlier this year when they announced that they're coming back, I watched. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it, after it was posted on YouTube recorded. And the light show, and just they were playing, like moving around the stage a lot. Like I feel like it'd be a great experience. And so that's my choice. I don't know if I should talk about the other options yet. Let's talk about what would your choice be?
Well, I was just planning on asking you this question. So, like, as you're answering this, I'm like, oh my God, what's my answer going to be? And I think you might have actually talked me into Linkin Park because originally it was My Chem,
Okay.
which I find it interesting that you and I both chose the solo artists versus the like stacked lineups.
Well, I was just going to say, I was never really a huge My Chemical Romance fan. I know the big songs, but it was never a band that I listened to regularly. I've been to Warped Tour. Warped Tour was great. I'm also just, again, with my aging, appreciating festivals less and less.
That's how I feel too. I'd
Yeah.
rather be around fewer people, or if I am around more people, we at least have a seat that's assigned to us. It's not like
Yeah.
we're having to fight our way of where we're going to be in the crowd. I know you can buy like a more expensive ticket, but yeah, that's so interesting that we're both. And you know what? I'd be so interested to see Linkin Park with Emily. She seems like, I don't know, the dynamic of that band together. They've also, I mean, one of the next things we were going to talk about is Linkin Park, so we might as well just dive into that now because we're already kind of talking about it. But like the thing that I find really interesting is, I should say that Linkin Park was part of our monthly emo news update because there's so much stuff going on with and around them. And my thought with going to their show versus another show, given those options, would be, and I know that this is maybe like a little on the glass half empty side, but they haven't known each other that long. They are new as a touring band. They're new stuck in buses together. They're new maybe stuck in planes together or whatever. And you never know how long that's actually going to last. Like what if they get into a year or year and a half later and they're like, I don't like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I imagine that
Interesting.
they've already sussed all that stuff out, and they've already kind of like they've worked through all those kinks, I would imagine, but you just never know what's going to happen because think about how many bands have broken up.
Right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have even thought about it like that. I have watched some interviews between Mike and Emily of Linkin Park, and some with just those two, and some that were like the whole band. Like Zane Lowe did an interview with the whole band. I think that maybe came out the day that they announced that they were coming back. But Mike made some comments about touring, even just the basic thing like she's a female and they've never had a female in the band, and that
Hmm.
creates like some logistical questions about the green room and like where you are changing your clothes and things like that.
It changes a lot.
Yeah, but they also Emily has been I don't know, acquainted maybe. I'm also talking with first names, like I know them personally and I do not. But
She's
Emily and Mike have been, I know, kind of working together for years. And the idea of her joining Linkin Park wasn't necessarily at the beginning of when they started kind of, either writing or recording together, or whatever they were doing, but then it morphed into Emily joining Linkin Park. So you had made the reason I bring that up is you made a comment that they are a new band, and they absolutely are. But I know Emily and Mike have they have years long relationship, at least, of
that gives
working
me
together
that
in
gives me
some,
more confidence.
yeah, at least in some capacity. um and yeah, I know that because I've watched some of their interviews, so
So
there's lots of them out there.
what else can you share about Lincoln Park? Because I think you've dove deeper than I have. You've diving deeper.
I did. I dived. No. Okay, moving on. Um, there's a Zane Lowe interview that I would recommend watching. That's with the entire band. There's that live stream that I mentioned that they did at some studio in Burbank. I think it was the day that they released or announced their new album and released their first single and announced their tour. And then like it was so short in time between that day and their first show at the Kia Forum, which is also kind of wild. It was only like a couple weeks that they announced that they're doing new music and doing a tour, and then they did that live stream, and then like 2 weeks later it was like sold out show at the Kia Forum, which is
Which
wild to me.
I'm still so jealous. I had a bunch of friends at that show, and it looked epic. I
Yeah.
would have loved to have been there. I've never seen them live.
Yeah, I haven't either. But the new album, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but it's great. Like there's some songs. There was a song that kind of sounded like System of a Down a little bit to me,
Ooh.
which was interesting. I said that to my husband, and he was like, "I don't know if I agree with you, but whatever. That's my opinion." And then there was another song that kind of reminded me of MGK,
What?
actually.
That's awesome.
So, like I said, I have listened to it a couple times, but it always takes me several times before I really am able to like say which songs are my favorite. I have watched their music videos that they've released, and they've got some really cool music videos. The Emptiness Machine music video was great, and they've released a couple others and a lyric video. And I mean, Emily and Mike they seem like they get each other really well. And that's totally based on, what they're presenting in their interviews. So who knows if anything else is going on behind the scenes. But I have confidence that like this is working and it's going to work for a while. Like Mike has basically said in interviews that he was, I don't know if vetting is the right word, but like he was certainly kind of playing around with multiple singers, and he said none of them felt right until Emily. And he was like, I can actually see this happening. And for years and years, he couldn't see anyone else filling that role. So
It's so cool. And she's such a powerhouse that like I almost hate to say it. I feel like I'm more into Linkin Park now than I was back then. They're completely different bands, but I just am so into the female fronted band, and she has such like the tone of her voice is like, I feel like she's just in my ear yelling at me in some of the song. I haven't listened to a lot, but what I have listened to, like, it just, you can feel her emotion through her voice. And I know that you could get that from Chester too, but there's just something about her that I'm just into. to use my language that I tend to use more frequently than I realize, and I guess it's more flirtatious than I realize. Like, it does it for me. It does. Like, it totally does it for me. So, yeah, I would love to see them live. Maybe we should make that happen. I think we should probably go and see their show.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of their show, they've been doing not a lot of shows. It's been kind of piecemeal. I feel like they're kind of announcing like 5 or 6 shows at a time, and a lot of them have been international. But we need to dive into that a little bit more, because I would love to go see them, and I think they'd put on a stellar performance. And that's not to say the festivals, Warped Tour and When We Were Young, would also be amazing, but I just, an all day, that's like, it also sounds exhausting. It sounds amazing, but it sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it does. That's like
where I'm at.
Looks like the closest one to us is in Vegas. I've heard worse ideas than going to Vegas with your friend for a weekend or whenever the actual date is.
We did that already this year. So
that's right.
Do it again.
Let's do it again. But maybe stay at a different hotel. We don't even need to name the place that we stayed at. That was my bad. I think I was the one that messed that one up.
I thought the hotel was totally fine.
It was fine. It's just the internet. It was the internet brought me down.
Oh, I actually forgot about that completely, but that was very annoying.
It was a great hotel, other than the fact that the internet didn't work in our room properly. And it's amazing how reliant we are on having tech and just connectedness at all times. And it felt like we were in, like, I don't know, a remote island off of the coast of some like small country, and we were in the smack dab in the middle of Vegas. Like, we should have had the highest speed internet.
Surrounded by thousands of people, like within 100 meters.
Truth.
Yeah, I forgot about that, but that was a bummer. Especially, I mean, we're always connected work-wise, so not having the ability to like efficiently email is annoying.
Truth.
Anyway, moving on.
Was there anything else you wanted to say about Linkin Park before we go to the next topic at hand?
No, I mean, I feel like we could do a deep dive on Linkin Park, but we don't need to do that right now.
Well, there's a lot of activity with the band. New music, new tour, new frontman, I was going to say, new lead singer. There are a lot of exciting things for them, and I think we should go see the show. Do we want to go into a little bit of music industry news, or do we want to go into another band-related segment?
Well, we could. You said that you would choose My Chemical Romance, so that is something that we could talk a little bit more about. Like, why would that be your choice, and what's the news around them?
Yeah, so My Chem, I did a deep dive on My Chem, and I have, I'm getting into the conspiracy theory land, and it's probably not a safe space to be. I should probably stop, because I've gone down some ridiculous, like, spider webs of the TikTok universe. And, I think a lot of times when I say, sources or whatever, my sources are TikTok, right? Like, I have other sources, but TikTok, there's just so much information that you can get your hands on so quickly. And there's so many people out there that are, I guess, doing the work to figure things out, especially when it comes into like the fandom land around a band. So as we all know, My Chemical Romance announced a tour, and it's called Long Live the Black Parade, I think is the exact name of it. And long live is in quotation marks. And so there's been a lot of posts. I'll say one thing about Gerard Way is he's a brilliant mind. He is very methodical, and he is very like particular in the way that he plans things out. He himself has said in the past that like he had names for records far in advance before the music was even made, or like he had ideas for like what step 4, 5, 6 is going to look like even before step 2 and 3 happened. So he's one of those guys that thinks way, way further into the future and kind of maps it all together. And so My Chem has been doing all sorts of different kind of they're kind of taking a page from Taylor Swift's book. And I think that we should give her credit because she really has been the one that like has taken the idea of an Easter egg or a teaser or like little hidden things in like release plans or whatever, and other bands have kind of adopted the same idea. But My Chem, based on my assumptions, based on stuff that I've seen in kind of the fandom around MCR, is that a lot of the things that they've been posting lately don't equal just a tour, right? It's not just like 12 dates in North America. They're doing a
Right.
lot more work than just a tour. And so the thought here is that there's an MCR5 album that's happening.
Right.
And that MCR5 record, a lot of people are thinking, so there's a lot of posts that have been happening where the posts that they're making, there's lowercase things in quotations, and then there's uppercase things in quotations. So like long live is in lowercase, so long live would be a song on the record, and then there's only been one thing that's been uppercase in quotations, and what the fandom universe is saying is that would be the title of the record. And so I don't know if I believe it to like that extent, but they keep releasing these things in quotations. And so like social media and all these different places, there's a specific woman on TikTok who is like such a super fan, and a lot of like, what I did is I was listening to a bunch of different fan accounts and whatnot, and just kind of getting general through lines. And the one thing that I think everybody's kind of agreeing on is, one, there's definitely going to be an MCR5 record. A lot of people are thinking that this uppercase and lowercase quotations is going to be essentially the story I just told you, that it is going to be much more than a tour, and that the Black Parade is technically, I guess, like, the way I'm understanding it, at least, is it's kind of like a band within a band. It's like an operatic. And so that even Gerard Way at one point said, like, this is the last show that you're going to see of the Black Parade. And so a lot of fans are saying that this version or this tour that's going to be coming out it's not just going to be the Black Parade record, because it's technically not the 20-year anniversary. It's going to be the 18-year anniversary. So why would you do, people don't do like 18 years later, we're going to celebrate the record, So it sounds like it's going to be a much more holistic thing. But yeah, I mean, there's so many people talking about different things out there. It was pretty interesting because I just got really interested, and I stayed up way too late and a few different nights just going down the spider webs of TikTok.
Well, and so I have not done that with My Chem. I have an off the cuff theory of long live. What if it's live instead of live, and it's either like a live album or a like concert video performance? You know what I mean?
That's a good question. And that almost, it's not that I want to get off the topic of MCR, but I have a similar theory around wordsmithing on Warped Tour that I want to talk to you about. But I actually think that is, you're right. The way we interpret words, there's a lot to be interpreted there. And I think, I don't know, there's just so much happening for that band right now. And everything is kind of cryptic, and there's little secrets here and there. And he's just, he meaning Gerard, because I'm kind of giving him credit, because I do think that this is like in his nature and the way that he's just such a smart brain that like they love their fans so much. Like when I think about My Chemical Romance, I think about how many lives they probably saved. Like when I think about bands that have really had an impact on like humans and life saved through like a band's music, for some reason MCR is always at the top of my list of bands that I think really had a huge impact on their fans, and I don't think that they take that lightly. So I know that's kind of serious of me to say, but I don't know, I have a lot of respect for the band, and I'm excited to see what they do. And I think that probably takes me back to, I think that actually would be the concert. I should have stuck with my gut at the beginning. That is the concert that I would want to go see this summer.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I do think it might be a play on live and live in some capacity. But I'm saying that, like I said, totally off the cuff, just based on some of the comments you made, because I haven't done a deep dive on any of those theories.
Oh, I'm here for it. I think No, see, the thing is nobody knows, right? And so when this
Right.
happens, like hysteria and all these ideas start coming out, and what are you gonna? I don't know. What are
And
you gonna
some
do?
are completely wrong and some are
Some
very right.
some are so wrong, and that's why I really only wanted to share kind of the common through lines that I saw across like multiple accounts and multiple places. Nothing. I didn't want to just take like one person's thought. It was more like a large sampling of like just general through lines. Okay, well now I have to talk about Warped Tour. I was going to try to steer us in a different direction, but we have to talk about Warped Tour because you know what I was thinking?
What?
So I guess we should, before we totally dive into it, because you never know, somebody might be listening for the first time and maybe they don't know that Warped Tour is coming back. But Warped Tour is coming back, not in its full way that we know and love Warped Tour, but they're doing 3 dates across the United States: DC, Orlando, and Long Beach, California. Right? Long Beach?
Yep, 2-day festival at each location.
And the ticket price is, do you remember? Was it $149?
$150.
Yeah. So, super cheap, very, very much like punk rock. And I shouldn't say like super cheap. It's still expensive, but if you take into account all the factors at play here and inflation and all that good stuff, the value per day is pretty damn good in my opinion. But, so Long Beach and DC are sold out. Orlando is still selling.
Mm-hmm.
But the piece around the wordsmithing that I came to the realization around is the pre-sale is sold out. I don't know if the event itself is sold out because they did pre-sales. And for some reason I went back and I was like, this is just a pre-sale.
Yeah. You're
Right?
right. You're right.
So, because a pre-sale then goes to an on-sale. So the pre-sales for both those dates are sold out. Orlando still has some tickets available for the pre-sale. Maybe prices will go up once they announce the lineup and all that stuff. But I also learned that they're planning on announcing the lineup in January. That came directly from the social media account of Warped Tour. Didn't
I
give
saw
an
that.
exact date, but yeah, they said January. And then, there's been a lot of spoilers that both you and I have been privy to. Do you want to talk about some of the spoilers? Or like, maybe not spoilers, but like the people were like pretty confident or playing?
Well, I know the two main ones because Warped Tour posted a video on their social media that was kind of like a pretend like interrogation of two band members and was like, "Are you playing on Warped Tour?" with the bag over their head, and it was really really cheesy, honestly.
It was,
but like
it was.
that's the most specific, and like the band members were from Hey Monday and Silverstein, and those were the only two band members on that video. And like I said, it was an interrogation where this woman is like putting a bag over their head and then saying, "Are you performing?" And they're like, "I can't say." That to me is a pretty clear indicator that it's Hey Monday and Silverstein. But
yeah, I'm with you on that. I like without a doubt, I think they're playing. I also think there were other teasers that happened that I think we can pretty much assume that they're going to be a part of at least one of the dates, because I don't think that they would have interviewed and put this information on their social media without there being some sort of tie. And they're all alums of it, and they're all available. Like, they're all pretty available to play, and from my opinion at least. And that is Story of the Year, 303, Simple Plan, and August Burns Red. And then also A Day to Remember they used in a bunch of their announcement stuff. And I would doubt that they would use those songs with such like gravitas and like these, and like there's just, with the announcement of I think that all of those bands are going to play at least one of those 3 dates.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I they've been doing a lot of teasers, frankly, with the music that they're attaching to certain videos and posts of theirs. So I think the theories could, I'm sure they do, spread far and wide, but the ones that you've picked out, I think, are definitely extremely likely to be on the tour. And one of the things I saw from, this was just a person on TikTok that commented on one of the Warped Tour videos, but I think it was a woman, said like her and her husband spent almost like a whole day picking out all the bands that they thought had been teased and going through their tour dates and seeing if they were available to play on, whatever Warped Tour date or not available to play based on their already existing tour schedule.
Oh,
I was like,
my God.
that is a level of commitment that I don't have, or just
That's
time that I don't
time
have
that
to do.
I don't have that kind of time. But bless her and her husband for doing the hard work, doing the, doing the work. I feel like you also had made mention to something about Mayday Parade. Did you think that there was anything with Mayday Parade and Warped Tour? Any sort of connection there?
Yeah, and I wish I would have, screenshotted it or something, because now I don't remember exactly, but it was a couple weeks ago Warped Tour posted a video or something on their story. Basically, it was like teasing about which bands are going to play, and then the following 2 slides were old Warped Tour videos like that they posted immediately after, and it was Mayday Parade and somebody else, and I can't remember now, so I'm unprepared for that. I'm sorry, but I felt like that was a huge teaser.
Don't be, because I think that also pretty much is telling us like what we're wanting to know based on a lot of factors that I can't even really like put into words, but based on pre-existing knowledge because of my, I guess we'll call it, connection to Warped Tour for all these years. I feel like there's validity in all of it. I mean, I know that we're still very much making kind of, what's the term? We're making like a hypothesis around like what we think, but I think this is a pretty strong theory though for everything around Warped Tour, just in the way that they've been teasing and kind of non-announcing, but whoever's running their social media account deserves the biggest raise, because they're going in line by line with all the comments and tossing back some quick wit to people. Oh, if you have some time on your hands, or if you're just laying in bed and like waiting to go to sleep, like, to any of the listeners, there's some funny shit in there. The quick-wittedness person behind the Warped Tour account deserves a raise. And then also, you love the Warped Tour confessions that they've been doing.
That's what I was just going to bring up, actually. So, do you have any idea if this was in existence, Warped Tour of old? Because I don't recall it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so Warped Tour posted this like Warped Tour confessions, and it's like a 1-800 number that you can call into. And
are you calling right now, Katie?
Well, maybe we should, because I'm curious what the voicemail says.
She told me that I needed to call in. She told me I needed to call in and do a confession. I'm like, I don't even know what I do, because I watched some of those confession tapes and they're outlandish, to say the least.
Yes. The one that they posted on their Instagram, so it's 1970 Kev says, and it says call or text with parents' permission, which I think is very funny, because anybody that has a Warped Tour confession does not need their parents' permission nowadays. And it's very vintage style of a video, so that's why I was wondering if it was a thing, back in the day too, because I didn't know if they were just trying to like revive it, or if this is a new marketing thing. But the one video that they posted with a confession was a girl, or a woman, I guess, who went in 2017. And she said she was watching a band, I think called New Year's Day. And the bass was hitting so loud, it just shook her whole body. So she shit her pants. and luckily,
when I heard like, I didn't think it was going to go that direction. I didn't think it was going to go the shitting of the pants direction. I thought it might have gone in a slightly weirder direction, but like I don't even know my reaction when that happened. It was too much.
And then,
but that's not all, right?
No, she's like, my mom was with me and I told her to go to the bathroom with me. And she's like, luckily my mom had an extra pair of underwear because she thought that she would shit her pants. Like, what kind of life are you guys living where you just think you're gonna shit your pants all the time?
Oh my gosh. I love that that was their first one that they posted too, because it's just
Yeah.
like it's so outlandish.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna call. Let's see what the receiving end says.
Are you calling right this second?
Hey, it's Kevin. Leave a message and tell me your story of attending Warped Tour in all its glory.
Well, I'll have to call back later.
We should have done one live on air. We're definitely gonna have to do one. Epic.
So,
Well-
yeah, we will find out in January when
Yep.
they release their lineup.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I think we don't have a ton to say about When We Were Young. Essentially, the lineup came up. Blink-182's on there. Who else? I forget who else is on there. You're always good
Panic
with
at the
lineup.
Disco.
Yeah,
is a big
Panic at
one.
the Disco. Yeah, Panic at the Disco is the big one where everybody has theories around is Ryan Ross going to be in the band or not? And yeah, and Blink and some other ones. You know, the first day is sold out. They're still waitlisted for the second day, but not a ton of happenings really new since the last time we checked in on that. The only other thing music related before we kind of jump into music business stuff would be the lineup for Coachella, which does have some emo bands on it, which you kind of alluded to earlier. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Green Day's a headliner,
Yeah.
and Jimmy Eat World's on the bill for the
Yep.
same day, I believe. But that I would have never expected that, but maybe I should have because Blink-182 headlined pretty recently as well. I think just after they announced their reunion, I think they were a headliner. So that's just a surprise. And Yo Gabba Gabba, which is not necessarily emo, but like that's an interesting pick as well.
Yeah, the lineup in general is all over the place. The one thing that I'll say that like I would consider them kind of modern day emo is a band, or it's kind of more of a dude, but it's a guy named, or the band is called Medium Build, and they're the ones that I've been hounding you about forever because Medium Build, Dawes, and Winnetka Bowling League have that song that I love so much. And I'd say that Medium Build is kind of in the modern day emo sphere in my personal opinion. So it seems to me that the day to go if you're feeling kind of emo would be Saturday because like you said, it's Green Day, it's Jimmy Eat World, and it's Medium Build, and it's also my favorite, Sam Fender.
Oh yes, which we talked
Which
about.
I would be remiss if I didn't say I cannot believe that I didn't catch that. I mean, still the tour dates that he announced for North America are all over the place, and they're like Mondays and Tuesdays. But seeing that I can't believe that I didn't catch that the time frame lined up over Coachella, the 2 weekends of Coachella, so that he can't play within a certain radius around Coachella because they have these things called radius clauses in any contract. So like if you play Boise, the radius clause on that is going to be way smaller than like if you're playing Coachella. Like the radius for Coachella is huge. It goes to LA, it goes like it's just a bunch of miles. So essentially like if you were to take a stick and put a string on it and then put a pencil at the end of that string and just do like a big circle around that center point. Essentially, you can't play within that radius within a certain set amount of time. And the radius clauses for Coachella and Stagecoach, they're hefty, like super, super hefty. So it makes it really hard for bands to play any shows nearby at all. So that's why you're seeing, it looks like he's going to Salt Lake City, which is probably like one of the closer places that he could play. But I don't mean to get on a Sam Fender tangent, but you know how I feel about him.
Well, I was going to ask, would you rather see him at Coachella or in Seattle or Salt Lake or Denver?
Your girl bought tickets to Seattle and Salt Lake. So
okay, so you're committed.
Yeah.
But that was pre-Coachella lineup announced, I think.
I don't really have interest in Coachella. Like it's back to your whole concept of like, I'd rather not be in a crowd.
Yeah.
I don't love festivals. I like doing festivals when, again, this is very, I realize that this is from a place of privilege, but I'd have artists playing festivals. And so I'd have backstage, like artist passes. Like that would be my experience is on the backside, the backstage. So I wasn't dealing with like these large crowds. And the idea of large crowds, frankly, just kind of freaks me out. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, fair.
I
All
think
fair.
partially like older in age, maybe. it's meant for the 21-year-olds, maybe not the mid 30-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, if I was in my teens or 20s, I'd be all about a festival.
For sure.
I mean,
Crop
still,
tops
I
and
mean,
everything.
festivals are still great. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to not go to a festival, but
Right.
if I had a choice, there are things to consider.
I'm with you. Okay, so can I hit you with a few things? Because I've been looking at, there's been a few music business happenings lately that have been catching my attention, that they're getting some more mainstream interest and mainstream kind of publicity, maybe. One is with Paramore. One is around how the split of, like, when you buy a ticket for $100, how does that money split between the promoter, the band, ticket fees, like all that stuff. And then another one is about songwriting. So my question to you is there one that I should start with that sounds more interesting to you off the bat?
Let's start with ticket prices.
Ooh, okay. So it was really cool. This guy, Randy Nichols, he posted this. He's a music industry veteran he's been around for a long time, super smart dude. And the idea is to kind of give a little bit more transparency around, like, if you were to spend $100, like if the ticket, there's a lot of factors here at play, and that essentially is if the ticket is purchased directly from, say, Ticketmaster, and that's the original fee, how does that $100 get split up? We're not talking about secondhand, like verified resale tickets or in any of the, like, where you're paying a higher amount. That split looks completely different. But essentially, they put it into a few different buckets. They put one for the artist, they put one for the promoter, and one for the ticketing fees. And so off the top, ticketing fees essentially takes, I'm just going to pull this up really quick so I don't speak to it incorrectly. $22 in fees. So what they did is they averaged a bunch of tickets over the course of 2024, and this is how they got all this information. And it came from NITO. All of this information came from an entity called NITO, National Independent Talent Organization. So a lot of research was done into this and kind of averaging, so that this isn't the exact case for every single type of ticket purchased, but this is kind of a generalization around it. So if it was $100, if your ticket was $100, approximately $22 in fees. And fees, as we all know, have kind of risen over the course of years. Sometimes when you buy a ticket, it's built in. Sometimes you get that added after the fact, which we all know how much we hate that. They say about $30 of your ticket goes to the venue for show costs. So when you think about that, it's kind of like stagehand, security,
Sure.
box office, sound, lights, catering, bartenders. It's generally, 35 to 40% of the show gross or total of the face value of the tickets sold. The next section would be promoter profit. So after the show costs, the remaining $48 of your ticket. So at this point, between the fees and the show costs, we're at $52. There's a remaining $48. The remaining $48 of your ticket is split between the artist and whoever was the producer of the show. So it could be the venue itself, or it could be an outside promoter. And so typically you'll see like an 85-15 or an 80-20 split in favor of the artist. And so what we're going to call this is an 85-15 split. So roughly $8 is going to the promoter to actually produce the show. So like at this point, roughly $40 of your ticket is going to go back to the artist. But that's not just profit, right? You have to think about all the expenses that are incurred by the artists themselves being on the road and touring. So things like transportation, hotels, production, gear, crew, salaries for musicians if they're not in the band, per diems, commissions to your agent, to your manager, anything. If you have an international touring artist, there's, visa or immigration costs. And really, if you think about all these things, they said here too specifically that they spoke to several business managers, and expenses can account for about 75 to 80% of all money being made on the road. So at the end of the day, the artist profit, they're looking at about $8. So artist expenses, they're saying about $32, and at the end of the day, artist profit is making about $8. So you're spending $100, and essentially $8 is going to be profit at the end of the day, which is why I came back for the artist. Yep. for the artist. So everybody's making money, right? But like there's money going everywhere. And the craziest thing is like, everybody's kind of in it together, but the artist, $8, if you think about that, it's a pretty wild number to get to after all the expenses.
That is. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's interesting to you, but I love these things because, I spent so many of my years deep in the music business, and not to say that I won't be in the future, but it's a changing landscape. And the one thing they didn't account for in here is merch sales and stuff like that. But, venues and promoters are making money off of merch too.
Venues and promoters make money off merch? I actually wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. So what sucks is 10 years ago is different than it is today. But essentially there's splits that also come from, so if you buy a t-shirt at a venue, a portion of that money is also essentially the venue is taking a portion of that because they're allowing you to sell at their venue is kind of the way they look at it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
if you're spending $30 on a shirt, not all of that $30 is actually going to the artist. A portion's going to the venue, a portion's going to the artist, and then that portion that's going to the artist, they're having to cover the cost of having the art made, having the paying for the t-shirt, the production, the shipping, and the t-shirt actually landing in your hands at the venue. And then different scenarios as well, like depending on the size of the show, there might be a merch person physically selling the merch for you, or it might be a bunch of hired people at an arena selling merch on behalf of the venue, or on behalf of the artist, I should say. So there's a lot of different ways that you can cut the way that these things operate. But that actually brings me into the thing about Paramore.
Well, the one thing that would be interesting to know would be like the $8 out of 100 that actually goes to the artist as profit. So 8%. Like, how has that changed in the last 10 years, 20 years? I would be very curious to know, see the bell curve, or maybe it's not a bell curve, but see a graph showing how much that's changed over the last 2 decades.
I can say with a decent amount of certainty that a general statement around the music business is that profits and whatnot especially for the artist or for the creative, it's just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over the course of years, which also leads me to the thing about songwriting. But it's interesting because, at the end of the day, where most musicians are making their money is on the road. And so when you think about how much is left over, and again, a Taylor Swift tour is very different than somebody going from Knitting Factory to Knitting Factory, or a more of a 1,000 cap room across the United States. Very, very different numbers we're talking about. And of course, the larger the venue you play, the bigger your pull, the more room you have to negotiate those numbers in the favor of the artist. But it's I would say generally it's gotten slimmer for the artist over the course of years.
For touring and for buying music, I'm sure. I don't know what the numbers are behind that, but I know that Spotify and streaming is pretty infamous for artists not making that much money off of their streams.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could do all these deep dives on this. I'll touch just the surface of this one because I don't want to get too deep into it. But another thing that I wanted to talk about was around songwriting royalties. So this isn't the artist themselves. It's not the band themselves. So sometimes a band will write all their own music. Sometimes a band or artist will have a bunch of people write music on their behalf and then they'll perform it. And so without making it too complex, because it is a decently complex web, to understanding all the different kind of financial channels that play into how to make money. But if you, Katie, were a songwriter on the next Adele album, you would have rights to money because you wrote pieces of that song. I'm going to just make this super, super layman terms.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple music industry people talking about this, and that's why I thought it was interesting to talk about for this episode. Is there have been some music industry people who have been bringing this bubbling it to the top even more and more and more lately, just because back to the whole concept of where's the money going as streamers have come into the marketplace, like, you know, like the Spotify's of the world. This money for these creatives is just getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So the thing that I wanted to highlight here is, if you, Katie, were a songwriter and you wrote a song on let's say you wrote a song on a Green Day record, and it was back in 1999, and you had
album.
a deep cut in that record. So your song was on their record and it got put out into the world, and your song didn't go to radio, but it was on the record. You as a songwriter probably would have made around $700,000. We're just giving like a generalized number figure to like a hit record, right? So that Green Day record does really well, and you don't have a single, but you're part of that record, and that's a big deal because you've just made a ton of money. Now, fast forward to modern day, if you wrote a song on the Green Day record and that song didn't go to radio, it was just on the record, how much do you think you would make nowadays if you were that same exact songwriter, just fast forward 20 years?
I mean, I have no idea.
$7,000.
Based on like what's changed.
Streamers. Everything it's back to streamers, and the way we consume music, and the way money is paid out based on the way that music is listened to. And that's why so many songwriters, you know, they're working with the government and working with all these different entities to kind of fight for the rights of artists. But it's crazy, because I think what happens in these scenarios is that we might be losing some of the most creative minds. They may try to be an artist, but after 2 years they might give up, and then or after a year they might give up because they're not making enough money. And, you know, we might be losing some of the like most interesting minds in the creative space. So
Yeah.
it's wonky. It's definitely wonky, but I will say that there will be good that comes out of this, because there's so many voices behind it. So,
Right. Well,
and you know what?
maybe we'll see more artists able to release music independently. I mean, that has to be challenging and expensive, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I mean, we know now from starting our own podcast, like it's not too expensive to put it out there, you know?
Yeah.
And I assume music is probably similar, but it just, how you get traction and then start making money off of it could be definitely a challenge, because that's what a label does for you, right? Like they take over your marketing. But I don't know, with like TikTok and things like that, if you have a riff of a song that gets picked up on TikTok and you release music independently, like you could go somewhere and just be on your, you know, be independent. But that's probably, I don't know, maybe that's high hopes or something. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think like what you're getting at is like the barrier to entry for a musician now versus 30 years ago. Like 30 years ago, it was such a machine that like you could just churn out hit after hit, because it was like you knew exactly, you took them to radio, you took them to this, and you did all the things. And now the power is kind of in the hand of the people. Right? The people are the ones that are making these big artists. And like you said, like the barrier to entry for any musician is so much lower. Like it's a much bigger world for musicians, but it's a much noisier world, because you kind of have to cut through all the gray noise to actually get to your people. But there's ways to make it happen, which is why, you know, the role of a manager, I think, is probably more important than it ever has been right now, because you need a manager to really help you navigate your strategy and figure out like what and how you're going to do it, and make sure that the people on your team and the people around you are doing what they are saying that they're going to do. But, you know, the last piece that I wanted to share quickly, and I'll do it really quickly, but this is a positive. I'm glad we're leaving things on a kind of a positive note. And I will say that I think all these things do have positive aspects to them, because I think with bad, it has to get better, because when people are upset and angry, like it's got to get better, and steps I think will happen in that direction. At least that's maybe my rose colored glasses that I have on. But Paramore, we started with emo and we're ending with emo. Paramore is doing some cool shit. So The reason I was saying I could have gotten into this earlier is we were talking about merch and merch sales at venues and how venues take a cut of merch sales that happen at the venue. And Paramore put out this statement, which I think I'm actually going to read really quick because it makes so much sense. But they said, "We want to thank you for supporting us this year while we're on a different kind of tour, playing for a whole lot of fans who might have been new to our music. Thank you for being welcoming to the newcomers who came around wanting to know more about who we are and what we're about. To anyone who is new, welcome. It was really nice to meet you. No matter the time that goes by nor the distance, we never forget the feeling of being with you at a Paramore show and the energy you inject into everything we do as a band. What we've built alongside each other has already proven to be long-lasting and impactful. All of the new merch items available on our site were designed by Paramore friends and fans. It means a lot to be able to represent our fan community via fan-designed items. So many of you are mega talented, and we hope to continue featuring your talent in ways like this moving forward. We've also decided that any contributing artists should receive a royalty whenever their items are purchased through our official online store. That will be in addition to a flat fee paid for their designs. Thank you for being here, Paramore." So essentially,
Love that.
this is so cool. It's so
Yeah.
cool. So to give just a tiny bit of color real quickly, because I know we're going a little longer than we planned today, but essentially, if you're a band, you're paying a designer a fee for a shirt or for a design that you can silk screen on a shirt, right? So you're going to go buy a t-shirt from a wholesaler and you're going to buy a design from a designer and then you're going to pay for a company to take that design and print it on that shirt. And then that shirt's now done. It can be sold at a venue. It can be sold online. It can be sold at a third party like Hot Topic or something like that. And so what they're saying here is that any design that has been made and is sold on their online store, in addition to that flat fee they're already paying them, they're going to pay them a royalty on every
Right.
single thing. That is so cool, and that's the way it should
So
be, and that's
cool.
going to change lives.
Totally. And do you know, did they do like a call out to their fans, like provide us with some like merch designs, or like, do you know how this came about?
You know, that's a really good question. You and I both know the person that has been behind Paramore merch for pretty much the entirety of their career. She's one of my best friends. I could ask her and see what they've done. It wouldn't surprise me because they're really closely tied to their fans. Maybe they did like a big like, hey, if you have really cool merch, send it into this.
Yeah.
Email.
I just don't
But
remember like seeing like an announcement like that, but I
Yeah.
absolutely could have missed it.
yeah, but oh
But
my gosh, I just think that's the coolest thing ever. Like,
well, it's such a great
Kudos.
resource. Like your fans know you better than some designer that you hire, and they know the ins and outs of what you're about, and the history of your music and the history of your band, and like can really put some really cool and interesting things together. I'm sure with nods to, former albums or former tours or whatever that like a designer wouldn't necessarily be able to do. Just like a third party, like professional designer that maybe can put together something really cool, but doesn't necessarily know the whole story. So
Yeah,
I love
or you
that.
might-
I think that's so awesome.
yeah, and you might be a designer. You might be a designer and you are a fan, right? Like both.
Right.
Both of those things. But the piece that I keep coming back to is the money. The fact that they're going to pay a royalty on every sale to the artist that created that item that's money that in theory could continue to last forever if they kept that design live on their web store and continued to sell it. Like I could make money off of the same design in 10 years because that royalty keeps getting paid to me, which
Right.
that's the right way to approach it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. I hadn't seen that yet. So thanks for sharing that. I'm not a
Yay!
designer. I have no talent to do that. So I won't be getting any royalties.
You have a lot of talents, Katie. But
Oh,
maybe
thanks.
graphic design isn't one of them.
Graphic design is not one of them.
Well, I've talked a ton today, so I apologize for that. And here we are at the end of the show. I think it's time for our emo lyric of the day. What do you think?
It's time.
It's
Would you
time.
like
We
to
need a
go
little like
first?
segment song.
We do. Just a little like drum beat or something. I don't know.
I could sing it. It's the emo lyric of the day.
Ooh, what a jingle. Love it. Would you like to go first or would you like me to?
You know, I will go because
Okay.
I actually think I did a pretty good job.
Okay, great.
I think I did a pretty good job today. I do kind of wish I would have chosen Paramore because I feel kind of emo about that whole thing that we just talked about. But I chose My Chemical Romance
Oh.
and the
okay.
song Helena,
Okay.
which so many people pronounce it Helena because of the town in Montana, but it's
That's
Helena.
what I tend to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And the lyric goes, burning on, just like a match you strike to incinerate the lives of everyone you know.
Ooh.
I don't know if I read it with the right inflection, but
Brutal.
I thought it was really I thought it was intense. So I was excited about it because you normally hit me with the intense ones.
Yeah, that is brutal. And can you say it again?
Yes. Burning on, just like the match you strike to incinerate the lives of everyone you know.
Burn it all down.
I know, that's what it sounds like. It's like I'm
Burn
coming
it
after you. We're
down.
burning it down.
Yeah, I love it. I also chose a My Chemical Romance song. When you said that, I was like, "Uh-oh, is it going to be the same lyric?"
How epic would that be if we chose the same exact song, the same band, and the same lyric?
I know that'd be wild.
We'd have to
but
buy a
just
lotto ticket.
we would. Just because I knew, we were talking about My Chem and their new tour and whatever else is going to come with that. I chose Welcome to the Black Parade.
Ooh.
And the lyric is, and though you're dead and gone, believe me, your memory will carry on.
That's awesome.
Which is, I mean, sad and deep, but also like nice. I don't know. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but
It's a pretty it's a like those lyrics are bigger than what they're saying. Is
Yeah.
what I can't find the word that I'm trying to say, but it's a heavy lyric in like a positive way. Like
Right.
it has legacy to it.
and the whole song, I mean, Welcome to the Black Parade. I think, are we in agreement? Like that song and My Chemical Romance in general are a big result of 9/11. And so I kind of took that lyric in that way, but it applies to anyone you lose, but I just thought it was like kind of nice. Your memory will carry on. And again, that's a song, that's a lyric that we've all sang so loud, and then you like really look at it and you're just like, whoa, I didn't really realize that's what it was about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you put melody to it, and it has a completely different meaning than when you read it.
Yeah.
At least,
So-
at least for me. Okay, so I have to judge, because I am the judging entity. I think I'm going to give it to myself today.
Yeah, you should.
I think it was a pretty good one. Like I feel more confident about that one today.
Yeah. I like it. I like that we both chose My Chem too.
That is pretty awesome. Well, yay. Well, Katie, is there anything else that we want to talk about on today's episode, or should we call it a wrap for our November emo news?
November emo and music news. I
and
would
music
say.
news.
Yeah. No, that's a wrap. So this was so fun as always, and happy Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this, as we release it, it's the day before Thanksgiving. So enjoy. Hope you're doing something fun or relaxing or, all of the above.
Yeah. And I guess, we'd be remiss if we didn't say like and subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. We hope to reach more and more people who are kind of, I guess we'll call it emo aligned. And and please DM us and reach out to us if you have any ideas of things we should be talking about or doing research on, or any cool things that are happening that we should highlight.
Yes, and follow us on Instagram as well. We are still the Emo Hour Girls, but on Instagram, that's our handle, but we are working on changing it to just at the emo hour. So look both up, please.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Okay, well, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.